My name is Joe Reingold. Today is January 9th, 2024. I'm here with Harold Breitbarth, and I am happy to have you here this afternoon. Tell us about your family, what you know about your grandparents and your parents, and where they lived.
Well, they didn't come over on the Mayflower, that's for sure. My father and my grandfather were from Poland, and my grandparents came to the United States, I think at about 21, and then my father came here in 22 or 23 after his parents got here. He came here with his older sister. And on my mother's side, her brother, they also were from Poland, and she came over in 22 and lived with my uncle, her brother, in Newark, New Jersey, and my grandparents on my father's side also lived in New Jersey, and I guess that's how they met. He was working for her cousin, one of her cousins, and I guess my mom met him there, and they were married in 27, September 10th of 27, and they gave, my mother had me on October 7th of 28, and I was born in Newark, New Jersey, but I ended up in the Bronx after that, and went to grade school in the Bronx, graduated from high school at James Monroe, which no longer exists, and I was very close with my aunt and uncle, the Morshires, and they moved to Dallas in 1941, or yes, I was bar mitzvahed in 41, and everybody was upset because they left in June of 41, and we were very close. I spent a lot of my early summers with them, or with my cousins in New Jersey. And my first visit to Texas was in June of 43. We spent the summer with my cousins. I came down and we kind of cramped into a 4-bedroom house on Stanhope, and it was a little convenient. Let's see, there was my aunt and uncle, Blanche and Harry was 4, and there were 3, 4, 8 of us in a 2-bedroom house on Stanhope. So I spent the summer here and fell in love with Dallas because I was back very close with my cousins. Ended up graduating in 46 and told my dad my parents I wanted to go to SMU. And at that time, my cousin Harry Morshire had just gotten out of the service and he was going to be a freshman. I thought that would be great. And so that was how I got to Texas. And my first day at SMU, the student union building was like in a room the size we're in here, and he kept introducing me to all these Jewish friends, and I said, what am I on, the yeshiva on the hilltop? And they all thought that was real funny. And so then I spent 4 years at SMU, and one strange experience I had, my first year in Dallas for Rosh Hashanah, I was over on South Dallas on Park Row, I think, and I looked up on the steps I was sitting in the park there across the street. I looked up and said, "There's my Hebrew school teacher. What is he doing in Dallas, Texas?" So I found out he was the Hebrew school teacher at Sheretz Israel at that time, and that brought me memories of him always slapping me on the wrist with a ruler because I wasn't the most studious one in Hebrew school. Next thing I knew, he left for Tulsa. So that was my first experience at Sheretz. And I graduated from SMU. And am I going on too fast?
No, it's wonderful.
And while I was at school, I got a job with a construction company. Did some bookkeeping for them. And then I graduated and I had about a 2-week. I had an uncle who came to Dallas to visit my parents, and
Did they move here also?
what?
You didn't say if they moved here.
Yeah.
Oh, when did they end up moving here?
They came in about 4 weeks after me.
Oh, okay.
They came here. They got out of New York, which I was grateful for.
Right.
And then that was we all stayed on Stanhope with my aunt and uncle. That was a real experience. Because at that time there was my aunt and uncle, my parents stayed with them, and they had a very large bedroom. And my cousin had gotten newlywed, and I had introduced my cousin. He was also from New York, and my dad had a grocery deli store, and his parents had a pharmacy, and he was in the service in San Antonio, and I didn't have any idea how close Dallas was close to San Antonio. But anyway, my cousin Blanche, I got them to meet each other, and lo and behold, they got married. So in a way, I made a shitter.
Yeah, that's good.
So they were living in the other bedroom, and Harry and I were sleeping on cots, army cots. And it was still summer when I first came down here, and we weren't very happy. At least I wasn't happy, because it ended up that my parents bought a home in East Dallas, which was not a Jewish area.
Right.
There was no one back of Woodrow Wilson, and the realtor, who was Catherine Curran, I'll be happy to mention her name, because when my parents bought the house, I had no I had to go by public transportation. I didn't even know how to drive a car at the time, because in New York there was no need, and at 18, I didn't qualify. So when we bought the house, I said, "Can you tell me how will I get to SMU?" She said, "Oh, it's very simple. You're 2 doors from Lindsley, and there's a Mount Auburn streetcar. When you get to Fitzhugh, you take the bus at Fitzhugh, you go to SMU." What she didn't tell me is the bus only went to Cole Avenue, and at Cole Avenue I had to catch another streetcar to SMU, which was a trip. And then first freshman year, I didn't know anybody outside of my cousins, and I didn't have a car, and I had a night class. And so when it rained, there was no cover, and I'd stay on Cole Avenue in Fitzhugh and get drenched, and then I'd have to stay on Fitzhugh and Lindsley. So I was very unhappy the first year I was here. Extremely unhappy. I left all my friends in New York, and I got involved at that time they had social clubs, and I got involved with a group of young men like me, and they asked me if I could play basketball. I said I could play a little, but unfortunately, here again, I didn't have a car, so I had to take a streetcar downtown to Irving Street, take the Irving Street car to Pocahontas, and in Pocahontas, I walked 2 blocks to the Jewish Community Center
I remember.
and played basketball. And then going home, I'd be all perspired and all, and I'd have to walk back to the car because there weren't too many friendly people, I have to admit this, to give me a ride home. Unless my cousin was there and he didn't play basketball, so he'd take me home. So it wasn't a fun experience. I got hurt playing one day, playing basketball, and they had to argue who was going to take me to the doctor. I was bleeding like a pig, and my parents didn't know anyone, and finally I went to a doctor on Forest Avenue, and he saw me. He said, "I won't take care of you," and I'm not going to mention his name. He passed away a long time ago. And let's see, so then they took me to Parkland, and of course I wasn't 21, so I had to call my mother, and they had to stitch me over my eye, and it wasn't my first year was not a happy event. So.
Did you move to a dorm after that?
What did?
Did you live in a dormitory at all?
No, I lived at home.
Oh.
But finally, a funny experience, I finally learned how to drive, realized I needed glasses to wear, because I strained my eye. I had a habit of sitting in the third deck at Yankee Stadium as often as I could get $1.10 to go to a ball game, and I did that a lot. Probably most of the time by myself because I was working a little with my dad, so I made some income there. So every free Sunday I went to a ball game when the Yankees were in town, and that was my big passion. So.
What was your degree and what did you study at SMU?
I was a BBA, and I ended up being a CPA after a couple of years. But when I got out of school, I went to work for the construction company. When it got to the point, and it's funny, they owed me more money than the company was worth because I wasn't getting paid. And I was very fortunate with them. I made some money. I thought I was going to make a lot of money, but they got invested in an oil well in Mississippi, and the first check I got was $1,000. Well, $1,000 in 1952 was a lot of money. When you think of it now, it's, borscht. So, let's see. I got friendly with a couple of guys that were in the social club, and a couple of them were at SMU. The second year was more fun, and the third year, I was okay. And I worked for this company for about 3 years, and the construction business in '53 wasn't good. So for 3 months I was unemployed. And that's the worst thing in the world. Is anybody you see downtown, what are you doing, where are you working? And you say, no, I'm not working, I'm looking. And I got a job with a local accounting firm. And I guess I had to say this because my grandkids will hear this story again, but I had a job, I got an offer to go to work for Ernst & Ernst, and I was just thrilled after it. And I went to, I'll never forget this, I went to Acton Commerce. There was a Walgreens, and I treated myself to a chocolate soda. And while I was sitting there, a young man that I knew, I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "I just got a job with Ernst & Ernst." And they offered me $325 a month, which I was thrilled because I was getting $100 a month from my oil royalty, and I was living at home, so I was at High Cotton, and he said, well, you know, we're looking for somebody. I said, oh. And I knew this fella because he was the accountants for my aunt and uncle, who I was, like my parents, very close to. That's, you know. And I said, well, what do I got to lose? I got a job, I'll go up and talk to them. So I went up and talked to them, and I told them I had a job, and they offered me $250. So that was $75. And I said, well, what I liked about this interview was a small firm. I didn't have to go in with 25 or 30 people. And so I took the job.
For less money.
And he said he'd give me $275. I got the job in August, and I went to work. Yeah, I went to work. No, I got the job in August, and I went to work for him, and he said in January I'd get a $25 raise. So, you know, first thing, at that time you didn't have computers or anything. I went to work. Can I mention where I go to work? Or?
Yeah, sure.
I went to work with Siegel. There's a client with Siegel Liquor Stores. And I'll never forget, I went to work there. They were on Lamar and Corinth was their office. And the gentleman who was the office manager had a heart attack. And, you know, they had about 8 stores then, and everything was handwritten in the daily report. And I had about 4 months to write up, so I got to know a little bit about the daily report. And I worked there, let's see, and the gentleman that brought me up to get the job quit. And when he quit, he said, I think you ought to fire Harry. I don't think he'll ever be a good accountant. I found this out later in life. But the reason he hired somebody, he wanted somebody because he was leaving. And here again, I won't mention his name. May he rest in peace.
Oops. Sorry.
Have I gone too long?
No, there we go. It's motion censored.
Time out.
We've been sitting too long.
Am I talking too much?
No, it's great. Go ahead.
And so...
How many years were you with them total?
I wouldn't go.
Yeah.
So I really started going in 1954. I started going on my own clients. In fact, I nearly got fired on the second month that I went on the job. This gentleman it was a Jewish firm, but he had like an Irish name. And here again, I don't want to mention names. It's I didn't even know the people. I got to know them later on. They had a client that was Jewish and unfortunately passed away, and they were getting ready to order flowers. And I just happened to mention, in the comments, I said, I don't think it's the right thing to do to send flowers to a Jewish funeral. I didn't realize that these people were Jewish that I was working with. Well, they got very upset that I made that comment, and they read me the riot act. By the time I got to the office, I thought they were going to fire me for making that comment. So I learned my lesson. You don't make comments anymore. And you kind of find out what kind of religion people are. You know, the experience I had is whenever I got a client on my own, I let them know real quick. Breitbarth doesn't sound too Jewish, it sounds more German. I let them know that I was Jewish because I didn't want to hear any comments. And if they had any inhibitions of hiring someone with Jewish religion, I just wanted to be upfront with people. I wasn't going to hide anything from them. And it ended up most of my clients were in Garland and the areas where there was. I didn't particularly have. Anyway, in 1958, I was working for a gentleman by the name of Nat Walters, a wonderful person. And he had a niece in Pittsburgh, and this niece had a cousin, and he was an accountant, and did they need an accountant? It ended up, this couple moved to Dallas, and he wasn't much of an accountant, but that's beside the point. In 1959, he tells me, or his wife tells me, I have a good friend in New York who's coming to visit me over the East Passover holidays, and I'd like you to meet her. You know, here I'm still single,
Mm-hmm.
and so it happened to be she came in town Passover. Naturally, Passover I always spent with my aunt and uncle,
Mm-hmm.
and there was like 15 or 20 people. And here I am, and I said I'd come by Saturday night, and you know, my uncle, God bless him, he was like my father. He always told me, if it means anything to you, I was born right after my grandfather on the Morshire side of the family had passed away. So naturally, I got the first Hebrew name. So he always told my mother I'd be the Kaddish for the family, and unfortunately, that's how it ended up. I get a little teary-eyed when I think about that. Excuse me.
Are you related to the Morshires that are here?
What there?
Are
Yes.
you related to Gary?
That's who I visited. It was Henry and Rose Morshire.
In there.
Do you know the Morshire?
I know Gary and his wife.
That's
Betty.
Gary is Earl was my first cousin, and Gary is his son.
Okay.
So I've
Right.
known the Morshire.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
In fact, I was supposed to visit with him this afternoon. He's been a client of mine since he got into practice.
Okay.
So anyway, here I am at Passover, and my mother is sitting next to my uncle, and I mentioned to him, my parents didn't drive. I said, I need to leave, I want to meet a young lady. And I said, I'd like to, at the intermission, whenever Aunt Rose serves the meal, I want to leave. And my best man at the time, who was to be my best, it was the gentleman that I introduced to Blanche, and he said, I'll take mom and dad home. We were very close. Mm-hmm. And so when it came to the mission, got up and I said, I have to leave. I want to go meet somebody. And right away, my mother was ready to jump out of the chair, and my uncle put his arm on, and she just looked at him, and he said, in Yiddish, he said, let him go. And so she sat down, and I met Carol. I still remember her in the red shorts and a plaid shirt. And that's how I met my wife. Ended up that way. That was in April. In May, I went to New York to a family wedding with Earl and all. And I dated her every night in New York. And Earl teased her. Started one day, Earl, he didn't drive in New York, and I could drive then. And I knew the way to go to his sister's house. They were having an affair after the wedding. And he's sitting in the back seat with Dina, and he kept teasing me. Well, when are you going to do a wedding? And I finally got to Morristown. I got my uncle on the side. I said, you better tell Earl to quit giving me a bad time, because this young lady is getting a little antsy, and he's going to spoil it for me. So he shut him up real quick, because on the way back to New York, and he wined and dined us there for a week while he was up there. And so that's how I got married.
And she was okay moving here?
And what?
She was all right by moving to Dallas?
Yeah, yes. We got engaged in got engaged in December at the Holiday Inn, right there by Love Field. It's
Oh.
not there anymore.
Oh, okay, yeah.
It's now Sewell Motor Company, has that entire block.
Yeah.
So that's where I am. In 1962, I became a partner, and unfortunately, my partner passed away in 1969. So at that time, Mr. Siegel was his executor, and I took over the practice. And
you're still doing it.
huh?
And you're still working.
Right now, most of it is trustees. I've got a few trusts that I manage, family trusts. And you want to know who I respected the most, who I thought the most of?
Sure.
May he rest in peace, was Sidney Siegel.
Really, yeah.
He was a wonderful man, a very charitable man. Taught me a lot of things. And so did Mr. Walters. But as far as being active in any
Community.
organizations,
Yeah.
outside of that social club I told you, I went to a meeting at Sheriff Israel one night, and I saw how they act, and I think it wasn't this in Wernick, it may have been, yeah, I don't know, it was this. Anyway, I went to a couple of board meetings, where the members could go, and I saw how things were, so I stopped going. They said, "How come you stopped going?" I said, I know how a railroad train is, and I see how these meetings are. I'm not interested. Thank you.
So that was your involvement with Sheriff.
I just being a member. I've
Yeah.
gone to meetings.
Right.
The most curious thing I have about sheriffs, and it bothers me, and Andrea keeps telling me, you can't forget things when something. I said, no, I'm a typical Borshire, I can remember.
Yeah.
When I first went to join, I was just married, so I went to, join, get a membership in the synagogue, and at the time they had a rule that if you were married, the first year was free. So when I went in, I said I'd like to join. I spoke to the president and said, well, Harry, you weren't married at the synagogue here, so you'll have to pay $100. I said, you're punishing me because I wasn't married in Texas? And he kind of smiled. I knew he was my cousin's attorney, so I didn't want to get it. I said, okay, it's $100, thank you. That was my
Your first
entree
entree into Sheriff Israel.
Huh?
That was your first entree into Sheriff.
Yeah, that was my first experience. That and the railroads, and I didn't get involved in the politics.
Okay.
I thought it was better off. The only time I got involved with Sidney Siegel was running for president. And I went to that meeting with my father, and fortunately, he ended up not winning the election. So I think he was better off with it. He had too much to do.
Synagogue politics can be tricky.
Yeah, I don't get involved in politics.
But your daughter's involved. What does she do?
Oh yeah, she's really involved. I guess she takes after her daddy to a certain extent. Yeah, my other daughter is, I don't know. She doesn't take after me, I can say that. I love her dearly, and make sure but she's like night and day with me. Andrea, Steven, my son-in-law, thinks she's another Harry. She's really gotten involved in the synagogue, God bless her.
So how else has your family grown? I know you have grandchildren.
Andrea got married. Eileen, God bless her, was 5. Well, let me tell you a story about Eileen. Eileen had a lot of friends in the BBYO and in the younger age in high school, and they all lived in the White White High School area, district, and we lived in Hillcrest. Well, she figured it out, to show you how wise she is, that the only way you could transfer in those days, you know, you had to, because of the race situations, you had to stay in your district. So the only way you could change was to have a course that was offered in White that you wanted that wasn't offered in Hillcrest. So one day in May, she took me to Hillcrest, and I spoke to the principal there, and I said, Eileen wants to transfer to White. And he said, why? I said, well, they're offering a course in plastics. It was a shop course, and you're not offering here, and she wants to go to this. So that's how I ended up at White with all her friends. And the first day I had to take her to enroll at White. At that time, the school started in September. And each teacher had a group. I don't know how that system was, but they had certain freshman group. One teacher was over to all the freshmen, and I had to meet with her. And she said, well, you're not here. We're overrun. We have enough students here. We don't need any more. You have to go back to Hillcrest. I said, well, here's this note. And Mr. Maples, who's the principal here, said she can come here. Well, I don't want her. I said, I'm sorry, ma'am, she's coming here. Well, lo and behold, after her freshman year, she was like in the top 8 or 10 in the class. She said, I know that Eileen has a sister. Does she want to come over here? I said, no, ma'am. She's staying at Hillcrest. So then she tried to convince her when she was going to graduate from high school. She said, you know, I'd like Eileen to go to LSU. I said, no, thank you. She's going to Texas. So I was real proud of her. She was Phi Beta Kappa at Texas. Mm-hmm. And she was, you know, when Eileen, God bless her, had a little ADD, but she overcame that and she did real well. And she eventually got accepted to UT Law School. And Andrea turned down an opportunity to go to work for AT&T. I remember there were 5 kids from her computer class that all went to New York and interviewed, and they all were offered a job, take their masters in computer science, so they'd help them go to either Georgia Tech or Columbia or Northwestern. He said, no, thank you, I'm gonna stay here. And she got her MBA at SMU, at night school. Mm-hmm. So I'm really proud of both of them, how they did. And I got a wonderful son-in-law, and proud of him also.
Besides your family, tell us something else through the years that you're really proud of that you did.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
Something else that you were really proud of besides your family. Can you think of anything else that you'd like to tell us about?
I don't know if I did anything that I'm modest. I've never gotten involved in social clubs. I kept working all the time.
Okay.
Spent too much time in the office and not enough time with my children as they were growing up.
Yeah. A lot of fathers did that in those days. My father did the same thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Push the pencil too much. That's about it.
Okay.
Do you think I left anything out?
I think you did a great job. Thank you very much. Oh, one just quick thing. Does everybody still live in this area in your family?
Yes. Andrea lives in Capel. Matthew is going to be married April 7th.
Mazel tov.
And living in Plano. And Drew just moved out. He's living in Louisville with a buddy of his.
Okay.
And, they're both working, and look forward to the wedding, God willing. I hope we'll be there
I'm sure you will.
for us.
Yeah?
My sister-in-law was married on was born on March 7th. Eileen was born on April 7th. Andrea was on May 7th. We were married on June 7th. And unfortunately, everybody's going to remember October 7th after what happened.
That's true.
And I was born on October 7th.
Okay.
So the only oddball was Carol. She was born May 10th.
Okay. But 7 is a good, a lucky number.
So
Yeah,
far.
Usually, yeah. All right. Very good. Thank you.